Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News on Sri FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Edu. The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the world at srinews.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Supreme Court stays ruling restoring GN savings and loans operating license pending determination of appeal by Bank of Ghana. Also on the program this afternoon, senior aide to NPP flagbearer Miracles Denis Aboagye still in EOCO custody despite bail. Later on the program, a normal life disrupted in Yendi as schools and businesses close following Yana Abukari Mahamad's passing. We'll bring you all the details you need to know. Stay with us. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Efforts are underway to secure the release of Denis Miracles Aboagye as his lawyers begin process of meeting the bail conditions imposed by the Economic and Organized Crime Office EOCO. Sources tell 3FM that the immediate priority is to satisfy the bail requirement rather than seek a variation, adding that once the conditions are met, the release process will follow. Aboagye spent Monday night in EOCO custody despite being granted bail of 50 million cedis with 3 sureties, 2 of whom are required to be justified. He was unable to meet the conditions yesterday. His lawyer Samuel Atachian described the bail term as quote, cruel and oppressive, unquote, arguing that they could not realistically be fulfilled on Monday night. But the focus now is to meet the requirement as quickly as possible. Christian Yale has been following this for us. He joins us live on the line. Chris, first of all, are there still numbers of supporters, as we saw yesterday, embarking on any protest today at EOCO? All right, so we'll be going to Christian Yale shortly. Sri FM 92.7 will bring you Lord's update shortly, but the Supreme Court has stayed the execution of the Court of Appeal's decision restoring the operating license of GN Savings and Loans, pending the determination of an appeal filed by the Bank of Ghana. The latest order temporarily halts the implementation of the appellate court's ruling, which had directed that the company's license be reinstated and control of its asset and operations returned to its shareholders. The Court of Appeal, in a unanimous decision in May, overturned an earlier High Court judgment that had upheld the Bank of Ghana's 2019 revocation of GN Savings and Loans license during the financial sector cleanup, describing the regulator's decision as unfair and unreasonable. The central bank subsequently appealed to the Supreme Court and sought a stay of execution while the appeal is heard. Let's speak to Court Affairs correspondent Lord Eduasari, who joins us live on the phone. Lord, what exactly did the Supreme Court decide today, and really what does the stay of execution mean for GN Savings and Loans in practical terms?
Right, basically, so essentially what this means is that the license restoration hangs in the balance or has been suspended. And so essentially GN Savings and Loans operations will have to be halted because the bank has gone to the Court of Appeal to appeal that decision that was given by the Court of Appeal restoring the license of GN Savings and Loans. Now, this essentially means that until the appeal that has been filed by the bank has been determined, the bank cannot go ahead to continue its operation. And basically, this is coming on the back of an earlier suit, even before the bank went to the Supreme Court to challenge the Court of Appeal's decision. Last month, the receiver also filed a stay of execution. You remember that as part of the directive by the Court of Appeal regarding the operationalization of GN Savings and Loans and essentially restoring their license, there was a directive by the receiver to begin processes to implement or to get GN Savings and Loans to resume its operations. Now, they went to the Court of Appeal for the Court of Appeal to stay the execution order which they had given, but the Court of Appeal struck it out and set it aside, and so that was suspended. But whilst this was happening, the bank then also escalated their appeal to the Supreme Court, which is the apex court, to set aside the Court of Appeal decision until their appeal is determined. So what this means is that we'll just have to wait for the Supreme Court to hear that appeal that has been filed by the bank challenging the decision of the Court of Appeal in restoring the license of GN Savings and Loans Bank pages.
And remind us again, the Court of Appeal had ordered the restoration of the company's license and assets. What are the Bank of Ghana's main grounds for appealing that decision to the Supreme Court?
We should say that again.
I was saying that the Court of Appeal had already ordered the restoration of the company's license and assets, and I'm asking what the grounds of the Bank of Ghana are as regards appealing that decision at the Supreme Court.
Well, they cited jurisdictional matters, and then they also indicated that nothing was untoward in revoking the license of GN Savings and Loans, and so they wanted the Court of Appeal essentially to look at this, saying that they went through the right processes. Indeed, GN Savings and Loans had not met the requirements, for which reason their license was revoked, and so it cannot be that the Court of Appeal can order for its license to be restored. And so this was some of the relief that they were seeking, that the Court of Appeal essentially threw out and then restored the license of GN Savings and Loans. So with this going back to court and this amount to the apex court, it's just a matter of time for the hearing notice to be given as to when that appeal will be heard and the final decision will be given, and then we'll know the final fate of GN Savings and Loans, especially because you recall, Beatrice, that its founder, Dr. Indom, had indicated that the bank is going to resume its operations across the country, and then they are actually taking steps to effect this. Now, this is going to sort of put a dent or a hole or a major break in all this, because they'll now have to wait until the court processes or essentially the hearing is done.
All right, thank you very much, Lord Edwasari. He's our court affairs correspondent. Some 9 minutes past the hour of 12. When we come back, we'll bring you some more. Stay with us. Yes, so here on the Midday News on 3FM and 92.7. Now the government of Ghana is set to introduce a diaspora national program aimed at reconnecting young Ghanaians born and raised abroad with their roots, whilst encouraging them to contribute to the country's development. Director of Diaspora Affairs at the Office of the President, Kofi Otredako, announced the initiative during the Made in Ghana Diaspora Student Forum, saying the program will target young members of the Ghanaian diaspora before they enter university. He said participants will spend few months in Ghana, immersing themselves in the country's culture, institutions and way of life before returning abroad to continue their education. The initiative, he indicated, is intended to strengthen their connection to Ghana and encourage long-term engagement in national development. Mr. Otredako made the announcement while addressing students, policymakers, academics and development practitioners from Ghana, Europe, Asia and North America at the virtual forum organized by NUCS Germany in collaboration with NUCS UK, NUCS China and supported by the National Union of Ghana Students.
Our objective is not to persuade every Ghanaian student to return home immediately after graduation. That would neither be practical or very necessary. Our objective is to ensure that wherever you find yourselves, Ghana remains part of your professional journey. Every year, Ghanaian students graduate from some of the world's leading universities. They publish research, develop new technologies, participate in advanced industries and contribute to cutting-edge innovation. Our responsibility as a government is to create stronger channels through which expertise can benefit Ghana, regardless of where those individuals live. The countries that succeed over the next generation will be those that know where their skilled citizens are, remain connected to them, and also create opportunities of continuous engagement. We intend to have what we want to call Diaspora National Service, and it's actually not meant for people like you, but people who grew up abroad and are getting ready, to go into university. It's not really sort of the age brackets, but somehow come back home to Ghana and be re-immersed in or reintegrated into the Ghanaian society or the Ghanaian system for maybe 2 months and then they go back. I think it will be a very good way of also getting them intentional with our country. You can contribute to Ghana without permanently relocating.
And he had the Director of Diaspora Affairs at the Office of the President, Kofi Otredako, some 13 minutes past the hour of 12 now. The Minerals Commission, with support from the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, NIMOS, and a task force from the Commission, this morning launched an operation to clamp down on illegal commercial sand-winning activities in Chopoli and its surrounding communities. Addressing the media during the operation, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer in charge of small-scale mining and industrial minerals at the Minerals Commission, Maxwell Yao Akpene Klu, said the illegal activities are not only depriving the Commission and the state of internally generated funds, but also causing a significant environmental damage and posing serious risks to nearby households. He emphasized that the operation forms part of ongoing efforts to enforce mining regulations, protect the environment, and ensure that commercial sand winning is carried out only by licensed operators in accordance with the law. Joseph Armstrong is our man following this. He joins us live on the line. Joseph, okay, we've lost him there, but let's listen to the Deputy Minerals Commissioner talking to the press earlier.
Site, is it licensed or it's not licensed? Because when we go here, realized that they had been abandoned. Just a bit of clarification.
Yes, so if you can even see that immediately we came, the operator has jumped off and we are not interested in chasing him today. So everything shows that whatever they are doing, they are not licensed. The guy himself does not even seem to know who he's working for suddenly. He doesn't know the name of the boss. The boss, we just spoke to him and he's not picking up. He picked up the call and then he cut. So that should tell you that people can come under the under the cover of darkness, and today it is not even the cover of darkness. Broad daylight, they just enter a place and then they are cutting sand everywhere. No matter the project that they are on, this place must be duly licensed. They must have the requisite permits, and then they must comply with all the annual mineral rights, the ground rent, and all the statutory payment that they are supposed to pay. Then they must have our way bill. That is where we also generate our source of IGF statutorily. So this guy is moving. I'm not so sure he's not having any of our way bills. So it is a real challenge that we're having, and we are working with NIMOS. This spot, we are taking GPS location of this spot, and will come at another time to conduct other operations. Yes.
What happens to the excavator and other machines here too?
Yes. So we'll have a discussion with NIMOS and we'll decide what to do from here. Yes.
Let's go to Joseph Armstrong now. Joseph, if you can tell us who we just heard and what else you have witnessed from this engagement.
The people here talking have been arrested, numbering about so far 8 of them, 8 truck drivers for the excavator operators. The moment they saw on site the NIMOS team coming with criminal solution, they took to their heels, abandoned their excavators and ran for their life. But for the truck drivers, they picked up by NIMOS team and they've been handed over to the nearby police. That is the Chopoli police. Asked to keep them and find out who really had them to come and collect them. They currently moved to the Shire Hills area where we are also storing some query sites where those operating without licenses are also being served. Later, after which they will close their queries here at the Shire area.
Unfortunately, your line is not good enough, but hopefully you can hear this question and it will be better. Are you able to tell us how residents are reacting to this beyond the immediate people who are involved and run away?
So for the residents, they are far from where this illegality is in place. So these truck operators or guys are putting deep into the reservoirs where there's not proper development in there, and that is very far from town. They only complain about how destroyed by the truck just when and people to the forest.
Thank you very much, Joseph Armstrong, and with my colleague, he's my colleague, monitoring that event for me earlier. Now, Dagban continues to mourn the passing of the late King Yana Abukari II, as kingmakers have begun processes for the third-day funeral rite of the late overlord of Dagban, which is slated for Thursday, July 16. Economic and other social activities, including education, has been brought to a halt following the death of the king, which has left residents in a state of shock. In Yendi and at the Gbewa Palace, all cultural and traditional processes necessary for the funeral of the late Yana are being observed. Christopher Amwako is my colleague in that part of the country. He joins us live on the line. Chris, what next between now and Thursday, when the third-day funeral rite would be performed?
Yes, so Beatrice, I can hardly hear you.
Okay, well, if you can tell us what could happen between now and Thursday.
Okay, so for now, the traditional processes for the performance of the third-day Adua is what is currently ongoing. Every traditional leader is expected to be in Yendi tomorrow ahead of the third-day funeral rites. And so right now, those who have other activities or other duties to perform are already getting into Yendi ahead of Thursday. So basically, it's just for people to arrive at the traditional dances and others that are supposed to be observed would be observed in the course of the day and tomorrow, so that Thursday, the third day, Islamic prayers will be held for the late king.
At the moment, what can you tell us as regards the atmosphere? How are people generally reacting to the passing of the Yana?
Yes, people are sad. Since yesterday, the atmosphere and the mood of people has been one that is characterized with sadness. People are still shocked. Most of the people are yet to recover from the shock of the passing of the Yana. They are not only shocked about his passing, they are also sad that a peace-loving person, someone who has succeeded in uniting Dagbon to a certain level, did not reign for long. And so it's something that the people are unhappy about, even though they have nothing to do about it. But according to them, they know very well that the Yana has paid his dues to Dagbon, and they believe that Allah is keeping him in his bosom. Let's take a listen to what a Dagbon historian, has been telling us about the preparation.
Definitely, Yana is a king, and his funeral are going to perform like an ordinary chief. Government will have a say. There's an international relations will have a say. The traditional authorities will have a say. So all these things, maybe the government will say, President Mama will say that, oh, I want to be part of the late Yana funeral. However, I'm going to this country. Kindly postpone it to keep my presence. You see that? So once cannot just say that this time, by this time it's late, or by this time it's too early, or this is the right time for the funeral to perform. I think this is where a lot of issues. Even Abudus and Andres will come together to make sure that a right time is given, an announcement will be made for the whole world to know how we can prepare ourselves as we approach the.
So we just had a historian giving us a bit more about the rights. But Christopher Amaku, you're still on the line with us. Talk to us about what we should expect on Thursday.
Okay, so Beatrice, what we should expect from today till tomorrow, where the main activities will take place, is that the people who are expected to be in Yendi for the third day Adua will, most of them arrive tomorrow. Tomorrow, the Yendi, especially the Bewa Palace, there will be some cultural activities that will take place, spanning from cultural performances, especially from the Lungsi, the drummers, who will be performing some cultural activities. We'll also be seeing the arrival of some prominent chiefs from Dagbon to witness this particular third day Adua.
Thank you very much, Christopher Mwako. He's a man in the northern part of the country. Now, 7 years ago, when he assumed the enscalment as the overlord of Dagbon, the Inda Yana Mahama Abukari II was focused on building a Dagbon state where peace will remain with or without him as the head. In the only exclusive interview he did with TV3's Komla Kluche, the Yana stamped his authority not to let politics and the division from the two gates, Andani and Abudu, break the kingdom. Let's listen to that.
How does he intend to heal the wounds? A lot of people have been maimed, some have lost their lives. How do you intend to heal the wounds for a united Dagbon?
With regards to the issue of the namship or the kinship, we have to exercise enough patience so that at least we can progress. The late Yana Yakubu Andani was my son. I gave birth to him. And as the tradition demands, he was able to ascend to the throne, the namship. On his ruling, there was a contest. I contested for 4 consecutive times, but all proved futile. I never blamed him because I knew that it was not my turn. Now that it is my turn, all of us can see where I am today. So there is the need for us to have patience ahead of all things that we are looking for. A tradition, that is what we all grew up to meet. If there is a vacant in a certain place, there can be 5 contestants or even more. At the end of the day, one person must get the position. So there is a need for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to know that if you miss a position today, tomorrow somebody will also miss to pave way for you.
As the Yana, how does he intend to win the trust of, quote unquote, the two gates, that is the Abudus and the Andanis, in his rulership?
To urge the media to exercise a little bit patience and not to be in haste. That in no time you will see what he'll be as far as that one is concerned. I will not in any way discriminate anybody, either from the Dani side or the Abudu side.
And you had that exclusive conversation Komla Kluche had with the late Yana 7 years ago. We returned to our earlier story about efforts underway to secure the release of Denis Miracles Aboagye as his lawyers begin process of meeting the bail conditions imposed on him by the Economic and Organized Crime Office. Christian Yale is a man who's been following this. He joins us live on the phone. Chris, if you can first tell us about the environment. Yesterday we saw party supporters there. Is it the same today?
It's not the same, Beatrice. It is totally quiet and calm here. I see just about 5 individuals who have identified themselves as members of the NPP who are here, but they are just more or less like onlookers observing vehicles move up and down here. The executives that we saw yesterday, the MPs we saw yesterday, are not here today, and just the police who are still here with their barricades ensuring law and order as it stands.
Now let's talk about his release. You tell us lawyers are working to meet the requirements. Do we have any fresh updates?
The only update as it stands is that I've just seen the lead counsel, lawyer Samuel Atachia, enter the EOCO building a while ago. We know that they were to trigger a process at the court today to more or less seek variation. Yesterday, he raised concerns about, in his own words, to quote him, how cruel and how oppressive the bail conditions were, and basically how impracticable it was to meet them to help release Denis Miracles Aboagye from EOCO's custody. Now, many had suggested, as it were, that as a lawyer, he knew what to do by seeking variation at the court. This morning when I came, I picked intel from sources within the room where the, engagements are ongoing, that the lawyers are yet to consider that option of going to court to seek variation. Right now, what they have been doing since morning as I came here has been to meet or work, get the documents, the necessary, requirements to satisfy the bail conditions. And once they are done with that, they will move ahead to trigger the process to release them. Beatrice, if briefly you may allow me to read verbatim, quote verbatim, what my source told me. Quote, it says, the processes toward satisfying the bail conditions have commenced. The legal team is actively working to secure his release as soon as possible. At this stage, the focus is on meeting the bail conditions rather than pursuing any variation of them. Once the requirements have been fulfilled, we expect the release process to follow, unquote. This is what we know, and very shortly we should expect to get any updates, if any, from lawyer Atachia or any of the legal team members who are inside.
All right, thank you very much, Christian Yale, our man following this EOCO Denis Miracles Aboagye case. And of course, we'll bring you updates as and when we have it. That's it for the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Log on to srinews.com for more news.
afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Institute of Chartered Economists Ghana demands full accountability from fiscal policy makers in upcoming national budget revision for big push projects. And the Executive Director at Center for Policy Security calls for fiscal consolidation driven by revenue.
The fiscal consolidation must be a revenue-led fiscal consolidation going forward.
Plus, Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies urges government to keep petroleum taxes stable as fuel price outlook clouded by geopolitical tensions.
If you look at our report for last year, almost 500,000 liters of crude oil is still not being accounted for. So let's avoid additional petroleum levies that could encourage fuel smuggling and unfair competition.
My name is Minu Afu. We'll bring you details of our headlines and many other stories shortly. And now to our first story. Chief Executive Officer and Chief Economist of the Institute of Chartered Economists Ghana, Gideon Emisa, has stated that expanding the domestic economy through aggressive transport networks is long overdue and heavily impacts the country's real sector. Speaking to 3 Business on the sidelines of an induction ceremony for new members in Accra, Emisa urged for public accountability on the Accra-Kumasi Expressway project.
If amendments, government is legally concentrating Ghana's oil revenues, including approximately $435 million from 2025 on major infrastructure rather than recurrent expenditures. Additionally, boosted by mineral revenues in excess of 5 billion cedis in 2025. These were to be redirected into construction. As the country prepares for the upcoming mid-year budget review, ISEG is calling on the Minister for Finance to present unambiguous policy guidelines, accurate revenue tallies, and an explicit framework on how those funds will be efficiently expended to boost market confidence in the state's regulatory regime.
Would actually call on the policy makers that with these particular funds, we want more transparency and accountability. Get into the mid-year budget review, would want to hear from the minister, giving us clear indications on the policy directions and the figures, i.e. the revenue coming in and how it's been intended to be expended.
The Institute of Chartered Economists Ghana's CEO expressed strong optimism regarding Ghana's current macroeconomic trajectory, noting that key indicators are pointing steadily in the right direction.
If you look at the real sector, I think we are recording positive figures, i.e. our GDP and then our inflation rate. They are all looking conducive for household and businesses as well. I think the fiscal regime, so far the government has put in place policies that is also looking good, as in our debt to GDP ratio and fiscal deficit. They all looking good, and would encourage government to go on that trajectory, employing fiscal discipline and prudence in the management of the economy.
That was a report on the Institute of Chartered Economists Ghana demanding full accountability from fiscal policymakers in upcoming national budget revision for big push projects. Away from that, according to Executive Director of the Center for Policy Scrutiny, Dr. Edusa Akodie, Ghana's fiscal consolidation efforts should focus on boosting government revenue rather than relying on spending cuts alone. Speaking on Business Focus, Dr. Sarkodie was of the view that Ghana needs a revenue-led approach to fiscal consolidation to strengthen public finances and support economic growth.
The fiscal consolidation must be a revenue-led fiscal consolidation going forward. Do something about the tax exemptions And then the government must increase its stakes in the extractive sector. And finally, we want to see the 24-hour economic policy or program in full force because it's a promise, and I think they must deliver on that. I believe that if you have money, you can do anything. If the government raises now revenue, they can do a lot of things. So enforce compliance, simplify the tax handles, introduce electronic tax, get the informal sector to pay income tax, enforce or improve property tax collection.
You heard Executive Director of the Center for Policy Scrutiny, Dr. Edu Sarkodie there. And now the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, COMAC, has urged the government to maintain a stable petroleum tax regime to strengthen business confidence, improve revenue collection through better enforcement, and avoid introducing new levies that could fuel smuggling and distort competition. The Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, Dr. Reverson Opong, said the industry's priority is policy stability rather than removal of existing petroleum taxes. Speaking on business focus, Dr. Opong said a predictable tax environment would provide certainty for businesses while allowing the government to improve tax compliance through stronger digital monitoring and enforcement.
As an industry, our message is very simple. We hope that you will maintain a stable tax regime to support business confidence. And this does not only relate to the oil and gas sector. If the government will not take any of the taxes on the petroleum products off, we want to have a stable regime, tax regime. And probably the government also want to improve on compliance through digital monitoring and wider enforcement. That way, we are saying that it should improve on revenue collection by eliminating leakages. If you look at our report for last year, almost 500,000 liters of crude oil is still not being accounted for. And that's revenue lost to the country, to the government, and to the regulators for that matter. So let's avoid additional petroleum levies that could encourage fuel smuggling and unfair competition.
That was Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, Dr. Reverson Opong there. And now the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana is demanding that the Ghana Shippers Authority compel shipping lines to account for and refund all excess administrative fees collected from local traders since the directive originally went into effect in May. This follows an Accra High Court ruling clearing the path for Ghana Shippers Authority to enforce its container charge cap. Executive Secretary of the Association, Samson Asaki Awingobit, speaking to 3 Business, urged the Ghana Shippers Authority and the Ministry of Transport to implement the directive immediately and without bias.
We expect the Ghana Shippers Authority to enforce it to the latter. We expect the Minister of Transport to give the support to the sector, and we are calling on the Transport Minister together with the Shippers Authority to make sure that importers and exporters whom these shipping lines ignored, defy the orders even from the Minister of Transport, and went ahead instead of charging when the Minister had requested that they should be charging 720 Ghana until he resolved the issues, went ahead, defied ought, and were charging more than the approved fee that the Minister of Transport approved, and went ahead charging the 6,000, the 5,000. We are saying that the Shippers Authority, together with the Minister of Transport, should compel these shipping lines, these carriers, to refund every peso that was taken by these shipping lines from the shippers, because they think that Ghana Shippers Authority did not have the powers. They think that the Minister of Transport did not have the powers to direct them to do what is right.
You heard Executive Secretary of Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana, Samson Asaki Awingobet there. And that's it for Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, kindly check out our website. It's www.3news.com. I am Minu Aful. Enjoy the rest of our programs.